In the majestic kingdom of Valdoria, where golden spires pierced the morning sky and ancient traditions ruled the land, Princess Isabella walked through the marble corridors of Rosehaven Palace with heavy steps. Her silk gown rustled against the polished floors as she made her way to the private library, seeking solace among the leather-bound volumes that had been her companions since childhood. The 28-year-old princess had always been the pride of the kingdom. With her flowing auburn hair and emerald eyes that sparkled with intelligence, she commanded respect wherever she went. But today, those same eyes were clouded with confusion and hurt. The conversation she had overheard 3 days ago continued to echo in her mind like a haunting melody. It was during the annual harvest festival preparations when Isabella had accidentally stumbled upon a heated discussion between Queen Evangeline, her stepmother, and Lord Chancellor Marcus. Hidden behind the heavy velvet curtains of the great hall, she had listened in shock as the queen revealed secrets that would shake the very foundation of everything Isabella believed about her family. The people must never know the truth about King Frederick's illness, Queen Evangeline had whispered urgently to the chancellor. If they discover that he has been unable to make decisions for the past 2 years, and that I have been ruling in his name through forged documents, the kingdom will fall into chaos. Isabella's heart had nearly stopped beating. Her father, the beloved King Frederick, whom she visited every evening in his private chambers, had seemed distant and confused lately. She had attributed it to the stress of ruling a kingdom, never imagining that his mind was slowly slipping away due to a rare neurological condition that the royal physicians had been desperately trying to hide. But the revelations didn't stop there. As Isabella pressed herself closer to the curtain, trying to make sense of what she was hearing, Queen Evangeline continued with even more devastating information. Prince Alexander must also remain unaware, the queen had said, referring to Isabella's beloved older brother and heir to the throne. His marriage alliance with Princess Sophia of Meridian is crucial for our kingdom's survival. The dowry and trade agreements will save us from the financial crisis that Frederick's failed investments have created. If Alexander knew the true state of our treasury, he might refuse the marriage. The chancellor's response had chilled Isabella to the bone. And what of Princess Isabella? She has been asking questions about the unusual number of closed-door meetings lately. Queen Evangeline's laugh had been cold and calculating. Isabella is too trusting and naive. She believes everything I tell her. Besides, she has always been more interested in her books and charity work than politics. She poses no threat to our plans. Now, 3 days later, Isabella sat in the library surrounded by historical texts about previous royal successions and constitutional law. Her mind raced as she tried to piece together all the strange occurrences of the past months. The sudden increase in taxes that had burdened the common people, the mysterious late-night visitors to the palace, the way her stepmother had started making decisions that previously would have required her father's approval. It all made sense now. Isabella thought about her father, the man who had raised her with such love and wisdom after her mother's death when she was only 7 years old. King Frederick had remarried Queen Evangeline 2 years later, and while Isabella had initially struggled to accept her new stepmother, she had eventually grown to trust and respect her. The queen had always been kind to Isabella, involving her in charitable endeavors and treating her with apparent affection. But now Isabella realized that every kind gesture, every shared confidence, every moment of seeming maternal care had been carefully calculated. Queen Evangeline had been playing a long game, positioning herself as the power behind the throne while systematically isolating Isabella from any real knowledge of kingdom affairs. The afternoon sun streamed through the tall library windows as Isabella made a decision that would change everything. She could not allow her stepmother to continue deceiving the kingdom while her father suffered in ignorance of his own condition. The people of Valdoria deserved to know the truth about their ruler, and Prince Alexander deserved to make his own informed decisions about his future. Standing up from her reading chair, Isabella smoothed down her dress and straightened her shoulders. She would need to be clever and careful. Queen Evangeline had underestimated her, thinking she was nothing more than a bookish princess with no interest in the complexities of royal politics. This misconception would be Isabella's greatest advantage. Her first step would be to gather concrete evidence of the queen's deception. Isabella knew that all royal decrees and official documents were stored in the chancellor's private office, but accessing them would require careful planning. She also needed to speak with her father's personal physician, Dr. Harrison, who had been treating the king in secret. As Isabella left the library, her Her mind was already formulating a plan. She would use her stepmother's assumptions about her naivety to her advantage, continuing to play the role of the innocent, uninformed princess while secretly investigating the extent of the deception. The harvest festival was only a week away, and important dignitaries from neighboring kingdoms would be in attendance. If she was going to expose the truth, that would be the perfect opportunity. Walking through the palace corridors with newfound determination, Isabella realized that her comfortable life of books and charitable works was about to come to an end. The naive princess that Queen Evangeline thought she knew was about to transform into someone much more formidable. The game of royal politics that she had been excluded from was about to gain a new player, and Isabella intended to win. But, as she passed a group of palace guards who bowed respectfully to her, Isabella couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay hidden within the walls of Rosehaven Palace. If Queen Evangeline had been capable of such elaborate deception about the king's condition and the kingdom's finances, what else might she have been hiding? The thought sent a shiver down Isabella's spine as she realized that uncovering the truth might reveal dangers far greater than she had initially imagined. The setting sun cast long shadows across the palace grounds as Isabella made her way to her private chambers. Tomorrow, she would begin her investigation in earnest. The kingdom of Valdoria was about to discover that their quiet, bookish princess possessed a strength and determination that no one, especially Queen Evangeline, had ever suspected. The truth would come to light, no matter what the cost. The following morning arrived with an unusual chill that seemed to settle deep into the bones of everyone at Rosehaven Palace. Isabella woke before dawn, her mind immediately focused on the dangerous path she had chosen to walk. She dressed carefully in a simple morning gown of deep blue silk, choosing clothing that would allow her to move freely through the palace without drawing unnecessary attention to herself. Her first objective was to reach Dr. Harrison, her father's personal physician, before he began his morning rounds. The elderly doctor had served the royal family for over 30 years, and Isabella hoped that his loyalty to her father might overcome any orders he had received from Queen Evangeline to maintain silence about the king's condition. Isabella made her way through the servants' corridors, a route she had learned during her childhood adventures exploring every corner of the vast palace. The narrow passages, originally designed to allow staff to move unseen throughout the building, now served her need for secrecy perfectly. She encountered several maids and kitchen workers along the way, all of whom curtsied respectfully but seemed surprised to see the princess using these humble pathways. Dr. Harrison's private chambers were located in the East Wing, near the medical facilities where he treated members of the royal household. Isabella knocked softly on his door, her heart racing as she heard footsteps approaching from within. The door opened to reveal a tall, thin man with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed spectacles. Dr. Harrison's face showed immediate surprise at seeing the princess at his door so early in the morning, but he quickly invited her inside with the careful courtesy that came from decades of serving royalty. "Your Highness," he said, closing the door behind her. "This is indeed an unexpected pleasure. How may I be of service to you?" Isabella studied the physician's face carefully, looking for any sign that he might be completely loyal to Queen Evangeline's deception. What she saw instead was a man who appeared deeply troubled, with the kind of weariness that came from carrying heavy secrets. "Dr. Harrison," Isabella began, choosing her words with extreme care, "I have become concerned about my father's health. I have noticed changes in his behavior and demeanor that worry me greatly. As his daughter, I believe I have a right to know the truth about his condition." The doctor's face went pale, and Isabella saw his hands tremble slightly as he gestured for her to take a seat in one of the comfortable chairs near his fireplace. He remained standing, pacing nervously as he seemed to wrestle with some internal conflict. "Princess Isabella," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper, "what you ask of me puts me in an impossible position. I have taken oaths as a physician to protect my patient's confidentiality, but I have also received explicit orders regarding information about the king's health." Isabella leaned forward, speaking with quiet intensity. "Dr. Harrison, I know that you have served our family with honor and dedication for most of your life. I also know that you loved and respected my mother, Queen Catherine, and that you delivered me into this world with your own hands. I am not asking you to betray professional confidences. I am asking you to help me understand what is happening to the father I love." The doctor stopped pacing and looked directly at Isabella, his eyes reflecting years of accumulated pain and guilt. She could see that he was making a decision that would either save or condemn them both. Your father, he said slowly, is suffering from a progressive neurological condition that affects his cognitive abilities. The disease began manifesting approximately 3 years ago with minor memory lapses and occasional confusion. Over time, it has progressed to the point where he experiences significant difficulty with decision-making, memory retention, and sometimes even recognition of familiar faces. Isabella felt tears welling up in her eyes, but she forced herself to remain composed. How long have you known? And who else is aware of his condition? Dr. Harrison sat down heavily in the chair opposite her. I diagnosed the condition 2 years ago, though I suspected it earlier. Queen Evangeline was the first to be informed, as she demanded full disclosure of all medical findings. Lord Chancellor Marcus was brought into confidence shortly afterward. They made it clear that this information must remain absolutely secret to preserve the stability of the kingdom. But surely the people have a right to know that their king is unable to rule effectively? Isabella asked, though she already knew the answer from what she had overheard. The doctor's expression became even more pained. Princess, I have struggled with this question every day for the past 2 years. Queen Evangeline convinced me that revealing the truth would cause panic among the people and potentially lead to invasion attempts by neighboring kingdoms who might view Valdoria as vulnerable. She assured me that she was only acting as regent temporarily until a suitable transition could be arranged. Isabella stood and walked to the window, looking out at the palace gardens where gardeners were already beginning their morning work. Dr. Harrison, in your professional opinion, is my father's condition likely to improve, or will it continue to deteriorate? The silence that followed her question lasted so long that Isabella turned around to look at the physician. His face told her everything she needed to know before he spoke. The condition is progressive and irreversible, Your Highness. Based on the current rate of decline, I estimate that within another year, possibly less, His Majesty will require constant care and supervision. He will eventually lose the ability to recognize family members or care for himself. The weight of this revelation hit Isabella like a physical blow. Not only was her beloved father suffering from a terrible illness, but Queen Evangeline had been using his condition to maintain power while allowing him to deteriorate without proper support or comfort. Dr. Harrison, Isabella said, turning back to face him with renewed determination, I need you to prepare detailed medical documentation of my father's condition, including the timeline of his diagnosis and the progression of his symptoms. Can you do this? The doctor looked uncertain. Your Highness, such documentation could be used to challenge the Queen's authority. If she discovers that I have provided this information to you, the consequences could be severe for both of us. Isabella moved closer to him, speaking with quiet but unmistakable authority. Dr. Harrison, you took an oath as a physician to first do no harm. By allowing my father to continue in a role he is no longer capable of fulfilling, while the Queen makes decisions in his name that may be harmful to our kingdom, are you truly honoring that oath? The doctor was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I will prepare the documentation you have requested, Princess. But I must ask what you intend to do with this information. The forces you are potentially challenging are powerful and have shown themselves willing to go to great lengths to maintain their current arrangement. Isabella straightened her shoulders, feeling the weight of her royal heritage and responsibility settling upon her. I intend to restore honesty and proper governance to our kingdom, Dr. Harrison. My father deserves to receive appropriate care for his condition instead of being used as a puppet. Our people deserve to know the truth about their leadership. And my brother deserves to make his own choices about his future based on accurate information rather than deception. As Isabella prepared to leave Dr. Harrison's chambers, the physician caught her arm gently. Princess, please be extremely careful. Queen Evangeline has cultivated many allies throughout the palace and the kingdom. She has presented herself as a stabilizing force during difficult times, and many people believe that challenging her authority could lead to chaos. You will need more than just medical documentation to succeed in exposing her deceptions. Isabella nodded, understanding the wisdom in his warning. I know the road ahead will be difficult, Dr. Harrison, but I cannot stand by and watch while my family and kingdom are built upon lies. Truth has a power of its own, and I believe that when the people of Valdoria learn what has really been happening, they will demand justice. As she made her way back through the servants' corridors toward her own chambers, Isabella's mind was already working on the next steps of her plan. She would need to gather evidence of the financial irregularities that Queen Evangeline had mentioned, document the forged royal decrees, and find a way to communicate with Prince Alexander before his wedding to Princess Sophia took place. But, most importantly, she needed to find allies within the palace and the kingdom who would support her when the time came to reveal the truth. The game she was playing had become far more dangerous than she had initially realized. But Isabella was determined to see it through to the end, whatever the cost might be. 3 days had passed since Isabella's revealing conversation with Dr. Harrison, and the princess had spent every waking moment carefully observing the daily operations of the palace with new eyes. What she discovered during her subtle investigations both shocked and saddened her beyond measure. Isabella had positioned herself strategically throughout the palace, pretending to read in various common areas while actually listening to conversations between staff members, courtiers, and visiting officials. She quickly learned that Queen Evangeline's web of deception extended far beyond the simple matter of ruling in her husband's name. The morning brought an opportunity that Isabella had been waiting for. Queen Evangeline announced during breakfast that she would be spending the entire day in the capital city, meeting with merchants and guild leaders about preparations for the harvest festival. This would give Isabella several hours to investigate the most sensitive areas of the palace without fear of discovery. Her first destination was Lord Chancellor Marcus's private office, where all official royal documents were stored and processed. Isabella knew that accessing this space would require careful timing and perhaps some assistance. Fortunately, she had cultivated a friendship with Elena, a young maid who had been working in the administrative wing for the past year. Elena was an intelligent girl from a farming family who had earned her position through hard work and dedication. Isabella had noticed her because Elena was one of the few staff members who seemed troubled by some of the changes she had witnessed in the palace operations. During their conversations, Isabella had sensed that Elena possessed both loyalty to the royal family and concerns about certain irregularities she had observed. Isabella found Elena cleaning the hallway outside the chancellor's office, and, after ensuring they were alone, she approached her with a request that would test the young woman's courage and loyalty. "Elena," Isabella said quietly, "I need to ask something of you that may seem unusual, but I assure you it is for the good of our kingdom. I need to examine some documents in Lord Chancellor Marcus's office, and I require your assistance to ensure that I can do so safely." Elena's eyes widened with surprise and concern. "Your Highness, the Chancellor's office is strictly forbidden to anyone except him and Queen Evangeline. If we were discovered there, the consequences would be severe." Isabella moved closer, speaking with quiet intensity. "Elena, in your work here, have you noticed anything that has troubled you? Any changes in how the palace operates, or documents that seemed unusual?" The young maid looked around nervously before responding. "Princess, there have been things that confused me. I have seen the Queen sign documents with the King's seal when His Majesty was not present. I have also noticed that many official papers that used to bear the King's handwriting now appear to be written in a different hand, though they still carry his signature." Isabella nodded, her suspicions being confirmed yet again. "Elena, what I am about to tell you must remain completely confidential between us. I have reason to believe that serious improprieties are occurring in the governance of our kingdom, and I need evidence to prove what is happening. Will you help me?" Elena studied Isabella's face for a long moment, then nodded with determination. "Your Highness, my family has served the crown faithfully for 3 generations. If you believe that something is wrong, then I will assist you in whatever way I can." Together, they waited until the administrative wing was empty during the midday meal period. Elena used her knowledge of the staff schedules to ensure they would have at least an hour before anyone returned to that area of the palace. She produced a key that she had observed the chancellor hide behind a loose stone in the wall, and, with trembling hands, she unlocked the heavy oak door. The chancellor's office was an impressive room lined with shelves containing ledgers, official documents, and correspondence dating back decades. Isabella immediately went to the desk where more recent documents were stored, while Elena kept watch by the door. What Isabella discovered in the first few minutes of her search exceeded her worst fears. The financial records showed that the royal treasury was not merely facing difficulties, but was actually nearly depleted. Large sums of money had been diverted to personal accounts controlled by Queen Evangeline, supposedly for emergency kingdom expenses that had no detailed documentation. Even more disturbing were the documents showing that the Queen had been negotiating secret agreements with foreign merchants and nobles that would essentially sell portions of Valdoria's natural resources and trade rights to outside interests. These agreements would provide immediate financial relief for the kingdom's debt, but would leave future generations of Valdorians essentially indentured to foreign powers. Isabella also found copies of forged royal decrees bearing her father's signature, authorizing everything from increased taxation to changes in succession law that would strengthen Queen Evangeline's position as regent. The quality of the forgeries was excellent, but Isabella recognized that the handwriting, while similar to her father's, lacked the distinctive flourishes that she had observed in his authentic correspondence throughout her childhood. Most shocking of all was a sealed letter marked private and confidential that contained correspondence between Queen Evangeline and officials from the neighboring kingdom of Drakmor, Valdoria's traditional rival. The letter discussed potential arrangements for a peaceful annexation of Valdoria into Drakmor's territory, with Queen Evangeline retaining a position of authority under the Drakmor crown. "Your Highness," Elena whispered urgently from her position by the door, "I hear footsteps approaching in the hallway. We must leave immediately." Isabella quickly gathered several key documents that she could conceal beneath her shawl, ensuring that she left everything else exactly as she had found it. Elena relocked the door and returned the key to its hiding place just as they heard voices getting closer to the office area. They managed to slip away undetected, but Isabella's hands were shaking as they made their way back to her private chambers. The evidence she had uncovered revealed a conspiracy far more extensive and treacherous than she had ever imagined. Queen Evangeline was not simply taking advantage of her husband's illness to maintain power. She was actively betraying the kingdom for personal gain. In the safety of her own rooms, Isabella spread out the documents she had taken and studied them more carefully. The timeline showed that the Queen's treacherous activities had begun shortly after King Frederick's diagnosis, suggesting that she had viewed his illness as an opportunity rather than a tragedy to be managed with dignity and care. Isabella realized that she now faced a terrible dilemma. The evidence she possessed was certainly enough to expose Queen Evangeline's deception and treason, but using it would also reveal the extent of the kingdom's financial crisis and her father's medical condition. The resulting chaos could indeed destabilize Valdoria and potentially make it vulnerable to the very foreign takeover that the Queen was secretly negotiating. However, Isabella also understood that allowing the deception to continue would ultimately result in the same outcome, but with the Queen positioned to benefit from Valdoria's downfall rather than its people. The choice was not between stability and chaos, but between a controlled revelation of the truth and an eventual catastrophic collapse built on lies. Elena had remained with Isabella during this analysis, and her face showed the same mixture of shock and determination that Isabella felt. "Your Highness," Elena said quietly, "what will you do with this information?" Isabella looked up from the documents, her expression resolute. "Elena, I am going to expose every aspect of this betrayal, but I need to do it in a way that protects our kingdom and our people. That means I need allies, and I need a plan that will allow for a smooth transition of power when Queen Evangeline is removed from her position. Who can you trust with such dangerous knowledge?" Elena asked. Isabella considered the question carefully. "My brother Alexander must be told the truth before his wedding, even if it means risking the alliance with Meridian. Our people deserve leadership that puts their interests first, and there are others in the kingdom who have served loyally for many years who might be willing to support a return to honest governance." As the afternoon sun began to set, Isabella made a decision that would set in motion events that could either save or destroy the kingdom of Valdoria. She would begin reaching out to potential allies immediately, starting with trusted members of the palace guard and longtime advisors who had served her father faithfully before his illness. The next phase of her plan would be the most dangerous yet, because once she began approaching others with her evidence, there would be no turning back. Queen Evangeline would eventually learn of her activities, and Isabella had no doubt that her stepmother would respond with all the cunning and ruthlessness that had allowed her to maintain her deception for so long. But Isabella also knew that she had one crucial advantage. Queen Evangeline still believed that she was dealing with a naive, bookish princess who posed no real threat to her carefully constructed plans. This underestimation would be the Queen's greatest weakness, and Isabella intended to exploit it fully in the dangerous days that lay ahead. The harvest festival dawned with golden sunlight streaming across the palace grounds, but Isabella felt only darkness in her heart as she prepared for what would likely be the most important day of her life. Over the past week, she had carefully approached several key individuals within the palace and the kingdom, building a network of allies who were willing to support her when the time came to reveal Queen Evangeline's treachery. Her most crucial ally had proven to be Sir Edmund Blackwood, the captain of the Royal Guard who had served her father faithfully for 15 years. When Isabella had presented him with the evidence she had gathered, his reaction had been one of profound anger and determination to restore honor to the kingdom he had sworn to protect. Sir Edmund had quietly recruited several of his most trusted officers, men who had noticed irregularities in palace security protocols and had been concerned about unusual restrictions placed on access to the king. Together, they had formed a core group of loyalists who were prepared to act when Isabella gave them the signal. Isabella had also reached out to Master Thomas, the kingdom's treasurer, who had been increasingly troubled by financial directives that seemed to contradict the king's previous fiscal policies. When shown the evidence of the diverted funds and unauthorized foreign agreements, Master Thomas had immediately agreed to support Isabella's efforts to restore legitimate governance. Perhaps most importantly, Isabella had managed to send a secret message to her brother Prince Alexander, who was currently in the neighboring kingdom of Meridian finalizing arrangements for his wedding to Princess Sophia. The message, carried by a trusted courier, contained copies of the most damaging documents and a detailed explanation of everything Isabella had discovered. Prince Alexander's response had arrived just 2 days before the harvest festival, and his words had filled Isabella with both relief and determination. He had written that he was immediately postponing his wedding and would return to Valdoria within days, bringing with him several allies from Meridian who could serve as witnesses to the events that were about to unfold. Now, as Isabella prepared for the festival's opening ceremony, she knew that Queen Evangeline was about to face the consequences of her deception. The festival traditionally began with a formal address from the king, followed by speeches from various nobles and dignitaries. This year, however, the ceremony would include some unexpected revelations. Isabella dressed carefully in a gown of royal purple silk, adorned with the sapphire tiara that had belonged to her mother. She wanted to look every inch the princess that she was, because today she would need to command the respect and attention of everyone present. The evidence she had gathered was carefully concealed in a leather satchel that Elena would bring to the ceremony at the appropriate moment. The Great Hall was magnificent in its festival decorations, with banners representing all the regions of Valdoria hanging from the vaulted ceiling and tables laden with the finest foods the kingdom could offer. Nobles, merchants, diplomats, and citizens had gathered from across the kingdom and beyond, creating an atmosphere of celebration that felt bitterly ironic to Isabella given what she knew about the kingdom's true condition. Queen Evangeline appeared radiant in a gown of golden silk that complemented her dark hair and commanding presence. She moved through the crowd with the confidence of someone who believed herself completely secure in her position. Isabella watched her stepmother carefully, noting how she gracefully deflected questions about the king's absence with explanations about his being slightly unwell, but determined that the festival should proceed as planned. The ceremony began promptly at noon, with Queen Evangeline taking her position at the podium to deliver what everyone expected to be routine opening remarks. The hall fell silent as she began to speak about the prosperity and stability that Valdoria had maintained during these challenging times, and Isabella felt a surge of anger at the audacious lies being spoken before hundreds of witnesses. "My dear subjects," Queen Evangeline said, her voice carrying clearly throughout the hall, "His Majesty King Frederick regrets that he cannot be with us today due to a minor illness, but he has asked me to convey his deep appreciation for your continued loyalty and support during these prosperous times." Isabella rose from her seat at the high table, her movement causing a ripple of attention throughout the hall. This was not part of the planned ceremony, and several people looked confused as the princess approached the podium. "Your Majesty," Isabella said, her voice steady and clear, "before we continue with the festivities, I believe our people deserve to hear the complete truth about the current state of our kingdom." Queen Evangeline's face showed the first flicker of alarm, though she quickly composed herself. "Princess Isabella, this is neither the time nor the place for political discussions. Perhaps we could speak privately after the ceremony?" Isabella continued walking toward the podium, and she could see Sir Edmund and his officers positioning themselves strategically around the hall. "Your Majesty, I'm afraid this cannot wait. Our people have gathered here today expecting to celebrate the prosperity of their kingdom, but they deserve to know the truth about what that prosperity actually costs." The hall was now completely silent, with every eye focused on the unexpected drama unfolding before them. Isabella could see confusion and concern on the faces of the assembled guests, but also intense curiosity about what the princess was about to reveal. Elena appeared at Isabella's side with the leather satchel containing the evidence, and Isabella took it with hands that were remarkably steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to do. "People of Valdoria," Isabella said, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall, "I stand before you today with information that will shock and disappoint you, but which you must hear if our kingdom is to have any hope of an honest future." Queen Evangeline stepped toward Isabella, her face now showing unmistakable panic. "Princess Isabella, I must insist that you stop this display immediately. You are overstepping your authority and creating unnecessary alarm among our guests." Isabella turned to face her stepmother directly. "Your Majesty, my authority comes from my birthright as a princess of Valdoria, and my duty to protect the people of this kingdom from deception and betrayal. That authority compels me to reveal that you have been systematically lying to our people while enriching yourself at their expense." The gasps and murmurs that arose from the crowd grew louder as Isabella began to present the evidence she had gathered. She spoke clearly and methodically about her father's medical condition, the forged documents, the depleted treasury, and the secret negotiations with foreign powers that would essentially sell Valdoria's independence. As Isabella revealed each piece of evidence, she could see the crowd's reaction shifting from confusion to shock to anger. Many of the nobles and officials present had suspected that something was amiss, but the extent of the deception exceeded their worst fears. Queen Evangeline attempted to interrupt several times, claiming that Isabella was spreading malicious lies and demanding that the guards remove her from the hall. However, Sir Edmund and his officers remained firmly in position, their loyalty clearly demonstrated to everyone present. "Furthermore," Isabella continued, "I have evidence that Queen Evangeline has been in secret communication with representatives of the Kingdom of Drakmor, discussing terms for the peaceful annexation of our kingdom under their rule. This correspondence shows that she was prepared to trade our independence for personal gain and position within the Drakmor hierarchy." This revelation produced outraged shouts from several members of the crowd, and Isabella could see that she had successfully turned public opinion against her stepmother. The evidence was too extensive and too well documented to be dismissed as the fantasies of a disgruntled princess. Master Thomas stepped forward from his position among the assembled officials and spoke in a voice that carried throughout the hall. "Your Highness, I can confirm that the financial records presented by Princess Isabella are accurate. Our treasury has indeed been systematically depleted through unauthorized transfers and foreign agreements that were never properly approved by His Majesty." Dr. Harrison also moved forward, his elderly frame somehow finding strength as he prepared to speak the truth he had hidden for too long. "Princess Isabella's statements regarding His Majesty's medical condition are also accurate. King Frederick has been suffering from a progressive illness that has rendered him unable to effectively govern our kingdom for the past 2 years." As the full magnitude of Queen Evangeline's deception became clear to everyone present, Isabella felt a mixture of triumph and sadness. She had successfully exposed the truth, but the cost to her family and kingdom would be enormous. Queen Evangeline stood frozen at the podium, her face pale and her composure finally shattered. The woman who had seemed so confident and commanding just minutes earlier now appeared small and desperate as she realized that her carefully constructed world was collapsing around her. Isabella approached her stepmother, speaking quietly but firmly. "Your Majesty, you have betrayed the trust of every person in this kingdom, including the man who married you and gave you a position of honor and respect. The time for deception is over." The silence that followed Isabella's final words to Queen Evangeline stretched across the great hall like a heavy blanket, broken only by the whispered conversations of shocked nobles and dignitaries trying to process the magnitude of what they had just witnessed. Queen Evangeline stood motionless at the podium, her face a mask of defeat and desperation as she realized that her years of careful manipulation had finally been exposed. It was at this moment that the great doors of the hall burst open, and Prince Alexander strode in with purposeful steps, still wearing travel clothes from his urgent journey back from Meridian. Behind him walked Princess Sophia, whose presence surprised everyone, including Isabella. The fact that Alexander had brought his intended bride with him suggested that their relationship had survived the revelation of the kingdom's true circumstances. "Sister," Alexander called out as he approached the high table, his voice carrying both relief and determination. I received your message and returned as quickly as possible. Princess Sophia insisted on accompanying me when I explained the situation to her and her father. Isabella felt tears of relief in her eyes as she embraced her brother. Alexander, I was afraid that revealing the truth would cost you your happiness and our kingdom its alliance with Meridian. Prince Alexander held his sister tightly, then turned to address the assembled crowd. People of Valdoria, I stand before you today to confirm everything that Princess Isabella has revealed about the deception that has been perpetrated against our kingdom. I also stand before you to announce that Princess Sophia and the Kingdom of Meridian have pledged their continued friendship and support to Valdoria as we work to rebuild our nation with honesty and integrity. Princess Sophia stepped forward, her composed demeanor and intelligent eyes reflecting a strength that matched Isabella's own. Your Highness, she said, addressing Isabella directly, when Prince Alexander shared your evidence with my father and me, we were deeply impressed by your courage in exposing such dangerous truths. The Kingdom of Meridian values honor above all else, and we are proud to stand with a realm that chooses truth over comfortable lies. Queen Evangeline finally found her voice, though it sounded thin and desperate compared to her usual commanding tone. You are all making a terrible mistake. The decisions I made were necessary to protect this kingdom from chaos and foreign invasion. If you remove me from power, Valdoria will fall into ruin within months. Isabella turned to face her stepmother, speaking with a calmness that surprised even herself. Your Majesty, the chaos you claim to have prevented was largely created by your own actions. The financial crisis, the diplomatic complications, the deception about our father's condition. All of these problems can be addressed honestly, but only if we stop building our kingdom on a foundation of lies. Sir Edmund stepped forward and addressed the crowd. By the authority granted to me as captain of the Royal Guard, and with the support of the rightful heirs to the throne, I hereby place Queen Evangeline under arrest for treason against the Kingdom of Valdoria. The arrest was carried out with dignity but firmness, as the Queen was escorted from the hall by guards who had served her faithfully until discovering the extent of her betrayal. As she was led away, Isabella felt no satisfaction in her stepmother's downfall, only sadness for the family harmony that had been lost and the difficult work that lay ahead. Prince Alexander took his position at the podium and addressed the assembled crowd with the authority of the heir to the throne. My fellow citizens, I know that what you have learned today is shocking and disappointing. The trust you placed in our family's leadership has been violated, and I take full responsibility for not discovering these deceptions sooner. He paused, allowing his words to settle before continuing. However, I stand before you today to pledge that we will rebuild our kingdom stronger than before. Princess Isabella has demonstrated the kind of courage and integrity that our family and our nation must embody going forward. With your support, we will restore Valdoria's finances through honest means, care properly for our beloved King Frederick, and forge international relationships based on mutual respect rather than secret betrayals. Master Thomas stepped forward to address the crowd about the kingdom's financial situation. Citizens of Valdoria, while our treasury has indeed been depleted, the situation is not hopeless. With careful management and the support of our allies, including the Kingdom of Meridian, we can rebuild our economic stability within a few years. This will require sacrifices from all of us, but they will be honest sacrifices for genuine progress rather than deception to cover continued decline. Dr. Harrison also spoke, explaining King Frederick's condition and the plans that had been made for his proper care. His Majesty will be provided with the best possible medical treatment and will live in comfort and dignity. While his illness prevents him from continuing to rule, he will always be honored as our beloved king, and his family will ensure that he receives the care and respect he deserves. As the immediate crisis was addressed, Isabella found herself reflecting on the extraordinary events of the past weeks. Her quiet life of books and charitable works had been forever changed, but she had discovered strengths within herself that she never knew existed. More importantly, she had learned that truth, no matter how difficult, was always preferable to comfortable deception. Elena approached Isabella as the crowd began to disperse, her young face showing pride and relief. Your Highness, may I say that you have been the bravest person I have ever known. Many people would have chosen to ignore what they discovered rather than risk everything to expose the truth. Isabella smiled at the young woman who had risked so much to help her. Elena, you played a crucial role in everything that happened today. Your courage and loyalty to what is right made all the difference in our success. Prince Alexander and Princess Sophia joined Isabella as the formal ceremonies concluded, and the three young royals began discussing the immediate plans for transitioning the kingdom's leadership. Princess Sophia's insights and suggestions proved invaluable, as she brought the perspective of someone who had grown up in a kingdom with strong traditions of honest governance. Isabella, Alexander said as they walked through the palace corridors together, I want you to know that I intend to establish a formal position for you in the kingdom's government. Your intelligence, integrity, and courage have proven that you should be involved in the important decisions that affect our people. Isabella considered this offer carefully. Brother, I appreciate your confidence in me, but I want to ensure that any role I accept is one where I can genuinely serve our people rather than simply hold a ceremonial position. The past weeks have taught me that I have skills and inclinations that I never fully understood, and I want to use them in the most effective way possible. Princess Sophia smiled at Isabella's response. Your Highness, if I may say so, your kingdom is fortunate to have leaders who understand that true service requires both courage and humility. The combination of Prince Alexander's determination and your wisdom will serve Valdoria well in the challenging times ahead. As the sun set over Rosehaven Palace, Isabella stood in her father's private chambers, holding his hand as he slept peacefully under Dr. Harrison's improved care. The king's face looked more relaxed than she had seen it in months, as if some burden had been lifted from him even in his diminished state. She thought about the cost of the choices she had made and the lives that had been changed by her determination to expose the truth. Queen Evangeline would face trial for her crimes, though Isabella hoped that justice could be tempered with some measure of mercy. The kingdom would face economic challenges as they rebuilt their treasury through honest means. The royal family would need to earn back the trust of their people through consistent demonstration of integrity and competence. But Isabella also thought about the possibilities that lay ahead. For the first time in years, Valdoria would have leadership that prioritized truth over convenience, service over personal gain, and the genuine welfare of the people over the maintenance of comfortable illusions. As she prepared to leave her father's bedside, Isabella made a silent promise to him and to herself. She would spend the rest of her life ensuring that the kingdom of Valdoria would be ruled with the same honor and integrity that he had demonstrated before his illness. The naive princess who had stumbled upon a conspiracy was gone forever, replaced by a woman who understood that true strength came not from power over others, but from the courage to do what was right regardless of the personal cost. The kingdom of Valdoria would face many challenges in the months and years ahead, but it would face them honestly, with leaders who had proven their willingness to sacrifice personal comfort for the greater good. And in that commitment to truth and integrity, Isabella knew that they had laid the foundation for a future that would be worthy of the trust that their people were once again willing to place in the crown.